Hi, and this is Mr. Nagengast, and in video 3 we'll continue where we left off in video 2, which I think rushed the end where we had an answer of 51.1 degrees. So we're going to take a look at this one. Given measure of angle A is 42 degrees, measure of angle C is 83 degrees, and measure of side C is 14 miles. I would like to set this up, and really I'd like you to try to do this one on your own and then see if you get the same answer that the answers that I come up with. If we look at this, we'll see that it's measure of angle A. Whoops, don't know why that happened. Let me try this again. We have the measure of angle A, we have the measure of angle C, and then we have the side opposite C. So we are looking at a law of sines. Again, this would be an angle, side, and so we'll look at law of cosine, or law of sines. Now you should be pretty good with that, and you should know which ones we're going to start with. We're going to need to find A first, so we'll have A over the sine 42 degrees equals, and then our C, which is 14 degrees over our sine of 83 degrees. Once you solve that, see if you can get the other two answers, and then I'll walk you through them. So why don't you hit pause now, and then I'll be back with you when you unpause. When I work this problem out, I see that I want to solve for A, so I simply cross multiply by sine of 42 degrees. Make sure your calculator mode is in degrees, or you'll have a little bit of an issue here. And when I did the work, I ended up finding out that side A would equal the value of 9.43 miles. Now hopefully the next thing you did then was said, well, you know what, I want to find B, but I also need to find the measure of angle B. So the only one I can find at this point is the measure of angle B. The way in which we would do that would be 180 degrees, subtract our 42 degrees, and subtract our 83 degrees. So the measure of angle B ended up being 55 degrees. That leaves us with finding side B. So side B over sine of 55 degrees, because remember it's B over sine B, equals my other two. Well, I've got choices now, but again I will choose the given because that doesn't deal with decimal approximations, of sine 83. And when I work this one out, I'm going to again cross multiply sine of 55 degrees, leaving me with the following, that B is approximately 11.55 miles. So I hope you had success with that. So we have another example here that I believe you can work on your own. And so I would attempt this problem. Again, this time we're looking at an angle, and a side B, which means it's in between the angle A and B. So angle A, angle C, and B. So this is a side angle side problem. Now, how do we solve I'm sorry, there we go again. An angle side angle. Every time I do that, I'm ready to use the wrong method of solving. So how can we solve for this one? Well, it looks like we can't use law of sine, because I know I need an A with an angle A, or a C with an angle C, or a B with an angle B. So it doesn't feel like a gut feeling that we can use law of sines. But of course we can't use law of cosines because we have two angles and not enough sides. So it must be law of sines. Now hopefully, as I was explaining that, you realize that, well, yeah, we technically don't have the third side given, but it's pretty easy, not the third side, but the third angle given, but it's pretty easy to solve for that. So we can quickly find the measure of angle B simply by taking 180 degrees, subtract our 35, subtract our 50 degrees, and come up with a solution. So I'd like you to try this, and then I'm going to pause the video, work them out. You can then restart or unpause. You'll see all the worked out solutions, and that should save us some time. Wow, there it is. Huh. I hope you see the three answers and they make sense for you. Once again, the first one, we were subtracting the two angles from 180 to come up with 95 degrees. Provided I didn't do an error, everything else should flow nicely. So solving for angle A here, or side A, it's a matter of cross multiplying, and then over here solving for side C, another cross multiplication. So I hope that went well for you. Now you'll see in problem 7 that I have crossed out measure of angle B equals 63. What I meant to have was that the measure of side A was 63 centimeters. Now you'll notice that we have two sides and an angle, and that should clue us, two sides and an angle, that we will be working with the law of cosines. Now in this case, if we looked at our picture, we have side B and A and measure of angle C. So we have B and A and the measure of this angle C. So that points out a side angle side case scenario, which is in fact law of sine or cosines. So there we go. We're all set. And now what do we have for this problem? Well, we have the angle C, which means the C's bookmark or are on each end. So I have a C squared, which will equal a B squared plus a C squared minus a 2BC times the cosine. I'm sorry, it should be A. So plus an A squared minus a 2BA sine of my C, or cosine of my C. Sorry, it's just having a little problem. Little lightning going off in the background, so I'm hoping I'm going to get this done and no power goes off. So at any rate, you'll notice I have B and A here. I could have had A and B switched in both of those cases. So whatever the situation may be, I still have it set up properly. Now, my C squared is what I'm going to find. So my C is what I'm looking for. So I'm simply going to substitute in the rest, and I'm going to have a 75 squared plus a 63 squared minus a 2 times 75 squared, or 75 times a 63, and multiply that by cosine of 57. Now, when I quickly work this out, this first part was a 9,594, and then it subtract the rest of it, which I'm not going to take the time to show what those solutions were, but working it all out, I ended up with a C squared of 4,447.161. So I went 3 decimal places because I want to minimize my rounding error. And what that gave me was a C value of 66.69 kilometers. So now I solved one unknown, this unknown of side C. Once I have this, I'm always ready to move on to law of sines. It works a little quicker for us. So I'm going to use my angle and my sides. Now I need to find angles. So if I'm going to find angles, I want to make sure I'm not finding an obtuse angle for law of sines, because again, the law of sines deals with an arc sine, and that would only take place in my first quadrant. So I'm going to choose the smaller of the two, because if there is an obtuse angle, it will not be the smallest side, and you will only have one obtuse angle. So working this out, I will say that I'm going to put my sine A on top over 63 because, again, I like to have my unknown in the numerator. It's not imperative or largely important that you do that. It just works a little nicer in our cross multiplication. So I'm going to set that equal to then my sine of 57 degrees over my 66.69 kilometers. And I am ready to cross multiply by 63, which then, working that out, will give me a sine A is equal to the decimal of 0.7923. Actually, it's 0.7922663935, but I'm not actually going to round in my calculator. I'm just showing what I have here. So I'm going to solve for A, or the measure of angle A, by taking the arc sine, or the inverse sine of that 0.7923, and giving me the result of a 52.40 degree angle. So there's my measure of angle A. Now, to get the final piece of the puzzle, I will take 180, I will subtract 52.40, and I will subtract my given angle of 57 degrees. And what I end up getting is a positive 70.60 for my measure of angle. Let's see, angle A, we have C, so B. Of these last two with the time remaining, I will solve number 8 for you and have you solve 9 and check with me in class. And we did one of these, I believe it was in video 2, this being video number 3, where we have a side, 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 so you'll need the law of cosines. Okay. 8 I want to take a look at because you'll notice they gave me 3 angles. Now the angles they gave me were 59, 57, and 64. And if I were to draw a picture and do some kind of estimate of that, my 64 might be somewhere up here. My 57 then might be somewhere like this. So I might have a 64, a 57, and then a 59 degree. Now that would be a picture. Let's, again, we'll call them as they are. So side B, C, and A. Now I need to find little a, little b, and little c. However, if you remember your geometry, you'll know that when you're given 3 angles, you could have not congruent triangles given, but these things called similar triangles. And so you can see that if I drew the same triangle but expanded its height, I would have different an A1, a B1, and a C1. And so therefore, you'll notice if you go back to law of sines and cosines, there is not a way to solve this triangle because there are an infinite amount of triangles that can contain these 3 angles. So we're done with this lesson. I appreciate it. Please make sure that you try this one, and I will check with you in class. Thank you.